So much money is going into these 7 businesses right now because, particularly over the last couple of years, we've seen some really high-profile finance YouTubers get into a little bit of trouble. Some of my favorite videos that I've ever made have some of the least views. That's actually something I wish, if I had my time again, I would have focused more on. It really helps on YouTube if people watch your content for you, as opposed to some cases, the subscriber to view count ratio can just be, it seems unreal. Like, really, when we're talking about finance and money, like who isn't interested in the idea of making more money? And yeah, I think it'll certainly have a big impact. What that impact is, maybe I've got no idea.
Today I had the privilege to talk to Brandon from the New Money YouTube channel with almost 1 million subscribers. And we talked about what it is like being one of the largest finance YouTubers in the world. We discussed what risk of disruption artificial intelligence represents to the YouTube finance space. We talked about the opportunity set going forward for his channel and maybe investing channels as a whole. And finally, we also talked about some of the lessons that can be taken from being a finance investing YouTuber and then apply to the art of stock picking. So you better do not miss out on this video. I hope you enjoy it. All right. Hi, Brandon. Welcome on this channel. I want to give you a brief introduction, first of all. So I would assume that probably, like, if I had to put a number on it, probably 80% of my viewers are aware of you and your brand, because you run the New Money YouTube channel, which I believe is one of the biggest finance and investing channels out there. At least it's probably in the top 3 when it comes to channels with a value investing focus. I would say you can maybe comment on this, but
that's at least
my impression. You've been doing this for quite a long time. Actually checked beforehand when you uploaded your first video, and it was on December 3rd, 2017. So that's almost 7 years ago. So maybe teaches you something about where consistency can get you. And I think you didn't delete your first videos, right? Because some people delete some of their first videos.
There are a few. We've had some issues with our financial regulator in Australia. So there have been a few that have been taken down now, just because we've had to go through a licensing process, and the licensor has to review our content. But no, most I try and keep them up. Like, I'm not trying to hide anything. I try and keep up the ones that I can keep up, which is a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
But no.
What I noted down here is, like, I think I didn't say the numbers. So you have close to 1 million subscribers, 870,000. And what I will say as someone with a much smaller audience is that you are definitely an inspiration for the smaller creators, because it shows where you could eventually go if you maybe just keep going. And especially keeping up your first content is probably an inspiration for new creators too, because if you compare the quality of your videos today to maybe your first videos, well, there's obviously a difference, right?
Yeah. Back in the early days, no, I appreciate those kind words, man. Yeah, in the early days, I filmed myself with a GoPro. It was a GoPro,
really?
and I had like just a little lapel mic, and I think I was sitting, for my earliest videos, I was sitting in my parents' lounge room or rumpus room. So it's come a long way.
Yeah. Earlier this morning, I was thinking about what kind of content I was consuming when I was getting into investing, which was also around 7 to 8 years ago. And there weren't that many creators back then. So I still remember, and I think you guys commented on it on a podcast too. So Phil Town was definitely the go-to guy when it comes to value investing, right? And I believe some of the first YouTube creators focus on a value investing philosophy were you, Hamish, and Investing with Tom. Couldn't remember anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah, it kind of worked out that there were a few finance creators, the Graham Steffens, the Andre Jicks, those kind of guys as well in the States, the financial education, Jeremy. But yeah, in terms of the more value investing side of things, there weren't too many. I remember watching a lot of Phil Town. So I remember Phil was doing his YouTube channel before I started. I can't remember who else was around at the time. Maybe I was still watching Monish Babrai, or maybe he came after I started my channel. But yeah, I started, and then I was kind of just enjoying it. He's not a typical
YouTube creator, right? He was just recording his lectures and still is.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So I think I was one of the first, and then Hamish and Tom, I believe, joined after me. But Tom doesn't make videos anymore.
Yeah, I had one question at the very end I wanted to ask you, because I know you're kind of friends with him, right? How is he doing? I'm sure people would like to know.
Yeah, he's doing, from what I understand, he's doing really well. I don't talk to him all the time, but I message him every now and again. He's just gotten into a different stage of life. I think he started a family now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
We should send him this video, and if he watches it, Greetings to you,
he
Tom.
can
We're
comment.
missing you. We're looking for your comeback
Exactly.
when you're a kid, and maybe kids in the future will have grown up.
Tom, we need you to upload a video just telling us what's going on. No, I think he's enjoying his life in New Zealand, settling down, having a family, and I think he enjoys what he does for his job as well. So that kind of takes up most of his time, I think.
Perfect. Then just to wrap up the introduction, I also wanted to point out that you run a podcast too with your buddy Hamish. It's called the Young Investors Podcast. So I just want to encourage everyone to check this one out too. And
Thank you.
we are just going to have a casual chat today. We'll actually have a lot of questions regarding the YouTube finance and investing space. Then I want to ask a couple of questions whether lessons from that area can be applied to the investing side of things. And of course, I have questions solely focused on investing too. So first question, Brendan, you've been doing this for 7 years. What would you say are some of your key lessons? First of all, when it comes to YouTube finance, and maybe secondly, when it comes to purely investing.
Investing finance. Biggest lessons probably just to stay really consistent. I mean, consistently always pays. I've been uploading, once a week for a very long time, at least once a week for a very long time. And a lot of people think that, they're you upload one video and then you just take off and you're a YouTuber and you go full time. But it's for most channels, it's definitely not the case. I did have one video that was kind of a turning point for me, but generally speaking, most channels kind of don't have that moment. It is just a grind and it's a slow build, but it's the important things are to kind of build community. Creators that do really well at building community and just staying consistent, and also just talking about the stuff that you're really interested in, I think is the key. It's easy to burn out when you're talking about stuff that you're not super interested in. They'd probably be some of my biggest learnings in that space. Because yeah, there are times where you do have to kind of push yourself through it a little bit and talk about it, because there's always I say with YouTube, the content that you make is kind of like you want to do stuff that you're interested in, but you also do have to make content, that people want to watch. Like
Yeah.
if you're interested in it, but no one else kind of really want to watch it, then your content's not going to go very far.
Mhm.
So you do kind of have to look at it from that lens as well. But yeah, sometimes I get caught out trying too hard to create what other people want to watch and less about what I want to make. And it's those kind of times where you find yourself on the hamster wheel getting burnt out. So there's got to be a balance between that, I think.
Yeah.
Staying consistent, making the content that you want to make, and also making the content that people want to watch.
Yeah. How do you approach that balance you have to find between creating content that you maybe want to make and then creating content that will be watched? The way I think about it is like I just try to mix it up. When I get really passionate about a topic and want to do a video on it, I'll just do it. But every once in a while, I'll also try to throw in video where I feel like the chances of it reaching a wider audience is higher. I guess you might have
Yeah,
a different perspective here because for you, it's also a business, right?
exactly. That's where it gets hard. I kind of wish. I mean, it's really a fortunate position that I'm in where I get to do this as a business. But in a way, I kind of wish that it wasn't my business, because then I think the content is almost a little bit better
Mhm.
overall. Like the quality of the content is a little bit better if you're not considering is this the most watchable thing ever? Because you're right, once it is a business, you do have to kind of conform to packaging topics in a certain way where it will be well received. For example, I know that I could talk about investing during periods of higher interest rates, or I could package it in a way where I find the clips of what Warren Buffett has said regarding, talking about interest rate hikes and how to invest during interest rates. And even though maybe my own take would have been better, I know for the YouTube algorithm's sake, it's probably better to package the video in a certain way, because my audience really likes content around, the world's super investors and what they're doing. So, I mean, it can be a tough struggle. Obviously, I fully acknowledge that I'm in a very fortunate position where I
Yeah.
do get to do social media as a business. But it comes with challenges. It comes with challenges. And sometimes, sometimes creators get that wrong. Like they try and package it too much
Mhm.
into what they think an audience will click on, and then they get called out for being really clickbaity and that kind of thing. So it's a hard balance to find. You got to keep trying, just got to do your best. But
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of the times, just doing content that you're really interested in actually turns out to be the most watchable content because you just come across so passionate about it, or
Mhm.
you go that extra mile to do the extra digging and do the extra 3 hours of research because you were just inspired to do that, which comes across in better quality content. So,
It's really
yeah,
hard
pros
to
and
predict
cons.
which videos will blow off anyway, right? So one of
So
my
hard.
more recent videos, I think, was uploaded maybe 2 weeks ago. Kind of
Right.
did very well for my channel. I think it's like 60,000 views right now, and it's
Oh,
definitely a
nice.
topic I did not expect to blow up. It was just basically on compound interest and some of the limitations and the factors that maybe influence your final net worth negatively, such as taxes, fees, inflation,
Right.
sequence of return risk. And I did not expect this video to do well, but for some reason it did. So it's hard to predict anyway, right? You can maybe recognize some patterns, but sometimes
Yep.
I guess you can relate to this. You may be very optimistic about a video doing well. You put a lot of work into it, and then first 48 hours, nothing happens, and it can be quite disappointing, can it?
Some of my most, some of my favorite videos that I've ever made have some of the least views. We did this really great video. I remember a couple of years back, myself and Claude. Claude was my editor at the time. He's since moved on, but Claude, we did this video with after interviewing a guy called Divya Narendra. And Divya Narendra, I don't know if you know him. He is one of the original guys that came up with the concept of Facebook as a social media before
Yeah,
Mark
I watched
Zuckerberg
that
kind
video.
of. Yeah, yeah. So I made that video and we spent so long because we wanted to, we got the opportunity to interview Divya, so we wanted to do this justice and really portray the story in a really interesting way. We took so long editing that video. We were so proud of it. And a lot of the times when you think the video is great, me and Claude, we kind of looked at each other and we were kind of like, this video is not going to do very well, is it? Like, yeah, probably not. And sure enough, it flopped, but we were so happy with how that video came out. We're really proud of it. But it's so funny. Like sometimes you do put in weeks of work into one video and then it does nothing. Or you can make an off the cuff video in 5 hours and what do you know, it gets a million views. So it's really hard like to put in consistent amounts of effort when you can see that happen. But I like to view it as like the overall, like take a step back and don't look at any one piece of content too much. Just look at your channel statistics overall and say, okay, I put out 20 videos or 40 videos this year and I got X amount of views. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Focus on the variables that you can actually control, right? How well a video will
Yeah.
end up doing is out of your control, kind of. I
As
also
long as you're putting
remember
in the effort. Yeah. That's the main thing.
I also remember last year, I think you shared your frustration in an Instagram story. I think you guys did a video, if I remember correctly, it was on the discounted cash flow method, and it was very well
Yeah.
produced. And I think that is something I find sometimes frustrating. Educational content per se, on average, isn't doing very well on YouTube, which is too
It's
bad.
hard. Mm.
Is
People would
that your
much
impression too?
rather, they'd much rather a video of 3 stocks to buy now as opposed
Exactly.
to this is how you value a stock. You get one
Exactly.
you can use for any company out there. One you're just getting some person's washed opinion on 3 stocks that maybe you should or shouldn't buy. But yeah, it is really hard. It is really hard because you're right. It's the best content on YouTube is the content that taps into your psychological biases, your confirmation bias, all of these all of these pitfalls that we have as investors. People tap into that. Content creators know how to tap that part of your
Mhm.
brain and get you fired up. Whereas, yeah, presenting a really well researched, pros and cons analysis of a particular company might not do as well as just saying you should buy this company. It's just our brains just don't want to look at both sides. They want to be fed something that is easy and reproducible and something that they can take action off of and something that follows their opinion. But yeah, it is really tricky. And you're right. I did voice my frustrations. I think maybe it was last year because we did do a really well
You
edited
should send me the link
video.
and then I'll put it in the description box of this video so maybe it can.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But what's interesting though is I actually saw that video pop up the other day in my analytics and it's actually not doing too bad
Oh,
now.
really?
And I
Okay.
think I think YouTube has gotten a lot better. The algorithm has gotten a lot better of rewarding good videos in time.
Hmm.
So a lot of the times when you're kind of clickbaity or doing the next hot news topic, you get a lot of views out of the gate and then the video's dead. But with videos that are just great and you've put the time into them, yes, they can start off being absolute. I've had a lot of, how we get the rating 10 out of 10 or 1 out of 10, one being how it's, the best performer out of your last 10 over a certain time
Hmm.
period, 10 being it's the worst performer out of your last 10. I've had a lot of 10 out of 10 videos that over time have just caught on. It's a slow burn, but you come back in a year or two and they've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views, and something you totally don't expect.
Yeah, yeah. You were just addressing changes in the algorithm. I think it's fair to say that nowadays the subscriber count becomes less relevant or is less relevant than maybe 3 years ago. And I guess this has major implications for you, who has quite a big subscriber base. How are you
Yep.
thinking about this change, and how does it affect your work?
Yeah, it's definitely true that subscribers matter a lot less, lot less. These days it's just a vanity metric. If you've got a lot of subscribers, like, oh, whoop-de-doo, look at you, so fantastic. But it doesn't actually mean anything anymore, and it's because YouTube has really changed the way that they recommend content. So I remember back in the day, your subscriptions were everything. That really dictated what you saw on YouTube. I remember back before there was a recommended tab. It was just you would just see the videos from the creators that you subscribe to. Now it's just completely the opposite. They really focus on what viewers are really looking at in the moment. So if I started looking at, I don't know, how to fix a drain, all of a sudden, even if you would watch my videos for, say, years on end, if all of a sudden you start looking at plumbing videos, how to fix a drain, it's just going to recommend every single plumbing video under the sun. And very soon I'll be gone from your recommended tab. And then it's up to you to remember me if you want to see my videos again. Otherwise, the algorithm will just move on with something different. So it has changed a lot in that sense. It's much more competitive, much more saturated, much more competitive. Um, but it's a challenge, why should it be easy?
Yeah, and I guess there will be changes going forward as well. I guess
Yeah, definitely.
adaptability is one skill you have to develop as a creator here as well.
Yep.
And I guess the
Yep,
other thing
definitely.
that comes to my mind is maybe it places more emphasis on actually building a community, people who will watch
Yes.
most of your videos. You might be familiar with the channel Joseph Carlson. He's also a value investor. I think he has around
Yes.
100,000 subscribers, and he averages like a very good view count for every single video. And I think it's just because
Yep.
people keep coming back. So he's done a really good job building that community, which I guess
Yep.
requires a certain
That's
style of videos.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually something I wish in if I had my time again, I would have focused more on. I would have doubled down and really tried to focus more on community. It really helps on YouTube if people watch your content for you as opposed to what you're talking
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
That's where just creators get absolutely huge and the audiences keep coming back. They get millions of views every single episode. Um, I was never like super um, laid back on camera. I found myself when I wasn't using a prompter, I would just drift here, there, and everywhere. So I kind of focus more on my content shining through the information that it presented, more so than who I am. And I
Mhm.
guess that's kind of, as you know, we as Australians, we don't like to float our own boats too much. We're too laid back. We don't like to talk ourselves up. So instead of like focusing on me and what I was doing, I would focus more on the information, and that did lead to some consequences in that, if I make a more relaxed video where I talk about what I'm doing or what my financial position is or what I'm focusing on, it tends to get less views as opposed to if I just talk about a topic in depth
Mhm.
and do a lot of research on it. So I definitely think focusing on community is a way better long-term strategy. Yeah, if I had my time again, I would do that much more than I have. I mean, I still have a great community. Don't get me wrong. There are still people that watch, all the videos that I make, and I'm so thankful for those guys and girls that tune in. But I would have doubled down and focused on it more, I think.
Yeah. What would you say? How do you accomplish that? So you just mentioned maybe you have to let your personality shine through more. I guess you
Yeah.
have to share more about your personal life too, right? That may be another thing you could actually
Yep.
do. Anything else that comes to mind?
I think it's also just like if we're talking about finance, not refraining from saying what you think about things. I think for my content, I'm very cautious that I don't really like the idea of particularly giving my own opinion because I'd rather present the information and let the end viewer kind of decide what they would like to take away from the video. That's me personally, but I think you definitely the finance creators that do well are the ones that can kind of blend in. Oh, they can say lines like "This is absolutely ridiculous" or that kind of thing, or like "Look at this." They can kind of get an emotion or get a connection with their viewers and tap into that. I guess it's tapping into the parasocial relationship aspect. It's something that I've not been particularly good at, but yeah, that definitely. I think that stuff definitely helps.
Perfect. Let's now maybe transition a little bit to some of the lessons we can learn from the YouTube finance and investing side of things to, yeah, investing
Yeah, sure.
as a discipline. So I first want to ask, in what way would you say are scale advantages? So just being a bigger company, or in the case of YouTube, a bigger creator. Are there scale advantages in place in YouTube finance? Would you say so?
I
So we kind of addressed it already because we said, well,
Yeah,
subscriber.
I think so. There are, but it's more on the business side now. YouTube
Mhm.
has really removed, it doesn't matter if you're a big creator or a small creator. A small creator can get a lot of views now as long as the content's good. And I think that's overall a good thing for YouTube. You want to encourage more people to create content if you're YouTube. So I think some of those scale advantages are gone. There's always a psychological kind of scale advantage to people thinking that you're more legitimate, although I think that I don't believe in that, but I think that it's just a
Yeah, good
psychological
point. Yeah.
bias. Yeah,
You're
that
more
people with a
likely to
lot of
subscribe to a channel with 100,000 subscribers than one with, say,
yeah,
50, right?
exactly. And it seems like that maybe the information is perceived more legitimately because of that subscribe. I think that's becoming less so the case though, because particularly over the last couple of years, we've seen some really high profile finance YouTubers get into a little bit of trouble in promoting bad advice or bad schemes or bad sponsors. But in terms of sponsors, actually, that's the other area where I guess large creators have a slight advantage is when we're talking more on the business side of things in securing those larger brand sponsorships or partnership deals. They'll tend to always look for the biggest creators first and see if they can lock those people in because obviously they tend to have just the widest reach and then they'll kind of trickle down to smaller creators after that. So I guess there are definitely some scale advantages, um, both real and just psychological. But I think YouTube is doing well to ensure that everybody, like I still get on my recommended tab, I'll still get recommended videos by creators that have no subscribers. I get recommended videos that have 200 views,
Yeah.
So they definitely still allow that real estate for people that are trying to come through, which I think is good.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
big creators they need to not get complacent. They need to be always on edge and yeah, not get complacent. So I think it's good overall.
Yeah, and in fact, I think there are also YouTubers with very big follower bases who get very low view counts on more recent videos,
Hmm.
maybe because they are not as good as they used to be, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yep, they haven't been able to keep the audience, and I've seen that as well. Some of the old creators that were really big, they still make videos to this day, but some cases the subscriber to view count ratio can just be, it seems unreal.
Yeah,
Like some people have millions of followers and only get a few thousand views per video, which just seems crazy. But it shows that they've fallen out of favor in the algorithm because they haven't been able to retain the viewers. They haven't been able to keep viewers interested. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's all a big game. It's a tough game to play.
Another finance concept is the concept of a TAM, so a total addressable market. How are you
Mm,
thinking about this in the YouTube finance space? So obviously we are creating content in a niche, but you're already
yep.
quite big. Do you still see room to grow? Where could you possibly see the channel, say, 10 years from now? Have you done any analyses regarding how big your channel could possibly get? Is that even a goal
Mm.
to increase the subscriber count even more?
I don't try and have that as a goal to increase my subscriber count, because I just don't think it's particularly knowable. I think for me the things I kind of aim to do are just keep creating 1 to 2 YouTube videos a week, like things that I can actually focus on, and I know that I can achieve them. Whether or not it's well received, well, that's kind of up to people in the algorithm. But um, sorry, I forgot what oh, that's right, total addressable market. Yeah, in terms of this is a tricky one because in terms of YouTube, um, you start off with a niche And normally you grow your audience from the start because you're somewhat different. You're doing something different. You're talking about something different, which is why people follow you as opposed to the bigger creator talking about kind of similar stuff. So it's kind of hard because you start in this niche and that's what causes you to grow. But if you niche down too hard, then your total addressable market is quite small. If I'm talking about pot plants that grow well indoors in the Canberra climate in winter, that's a harder sell than if I'm just talking about plants in general,
Or
right?
an example
So
in the finance space would be if you do a video on, say, a mid-cap company that few people have heard of, that video will obviously get
yes,
much fewer views than a video on the Googles and Metas
yeah.
and Microsofts, right?
So I think it's important. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think it's important because you do have to, as you get larger and larger, you do have to find a way to make your content appeal to a broader audience. But I think the important thing is to do it in a way where you don't leave the people that have already subscribed to you behind. So I think no matter how large I get, if I even get any bigger than what I am now, then I don't think I think I'll still be talking about value investing. I think I'll still be looking up to the best investors in the world. I think I'll still try and convey the learnings from those guys across to the audience. Um, because you do the key also on YouTube is to, if you want to have a viral video, you have to hit your core audience first, and then it has to go viral from there. And so if you pivot too hard and try and make your content more general, you also just don't succeed typically. Like if I come out and make a video talking about how to invest for beginners, well, I know that most of my audience are not really beginners anymore. We've kind of gone on this journey together. So
Mhm.
if I just make a video saying, hey, this is how to invest if you've never invested before, it probably won't hit the core audience, and therefore it won't get pushed to the broader audience. It might, YouTube, the algorithm might figure it out in time and start figuring out that it needs to serve that video to a different audience. But a lot of the times the video will just die. So you're right. It's a tricky kind of thing to think about, because really when we're talking about finance and money, like who isn't interested in the idea of making more money and turning money into more money? That's a concept that can be applied to every single human that's alive today, I think, and it's an important concept for everyone to kind of tune into. But in order to slowly transition your content into that massive total addressable market, is a very big challenge, and I don't think I could do it. And I think it's only a few people have really been able to do it on a wide scale.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. You were just talking about goals and how increasing your subscriber base is not necessarily one of the most important goals you are pursuing. What would you say is a goal for you over, say, the next 5 years? Are you talking about this within your team?
Yeah, we are. Actually, one of the, because we're obviously a business. So one of the goals that we have had, so for those that don't know, over the last year, YouTube has become increasingly volatile, and as advertisers have kind of reduced their marketing spend, CPMs have fallen across the board, which means that for every 1,000 views, you now make less money. And that's just a trend that everybody has experienced. I don't know if you've also seen that on your channel,
Is it
Renee.
that an as a result of the ad market just slowing down?
Yeah, it is. So it might pick back up, and maybe it will in the future. In the long term, obviously the macroeconomic factors are playing havoc with the marketing spend from big advertisers at the moment, which directly impacts YouTube channels. So most of our revenue is still generated as our business through YouTube. So AdSense and sponsorships around our YouTube videos, New Money Education, which is our course platform, our education business. All of those are still quite directly tied to YouTube views. Like if we get more views, we'll make more sales on New Money Education. If we get more views, we'll land bigger sponsorship deals. So one of our primary goals, believe it or not, is to diversify our revenue streams away from YouTube. So, for example, one of the things we're doing, kind of just a bit of a soft launch, kind of in the background, is we're starting to take on post-production
Oh,
jobs for
interesting.
clients. So yeah, so now we're starting to diversify, because we've got obviously you can look at our YouTube videos, and the guys that I've got are very good at motion graphics. So we can't
Yeah,
try
let
and
me just
leverage
say,
that
I
talent.
think I think your investing videos are the highest quality produced videos on investing out
Oh,
there.
thank you.
I think,
Oh,
I don't know
thank you.
when you started hiring people. I think it must have been maybe 1.5 years ago or so.
Yeah, yeah, about 2 years ago.
And you could
Yeah,
really
roughly
tell
2 years
when
ago.
someone started editing the
Yeah,
videos. And as you say, the
when it
motion
wasn't
graphics.
me.
Every time I watch it, I go like, wow, okay, that's going back to the point of you being an inspiration. I guess that would be a goal for me to just focus on creating the content. And then while I do enjoy the post-production, sometimes it can also be a bit monotonous, like it gets a bit repetitive. Having someone do
Yeah.
it at this level, wow, like heads off.
Oh, thank you, man. Oh, I
You have to give
appreciate that.
props to
Yeah,
the
well,
guy or guys doing
I
it.
will pass on the feedback to the fellas in the office. Yeah, because yeah, they work really hard and they are good at what they do. But yeah, I found yeah, similar to what you just said a couple of years ago. I was enjoying making the content, but I wasn't really enjoying editing. The editing would just take so long, and I wasn't particularly good at it either. Like you're right, you can tell exactly when I stopped editing my own videos because the quality is so much higher. So yeah, I mean those guys do an incredible job, but yeah, it's certainly a relief now that I don't have to edit my own videos.
Yeah. I was just talking about your 5-year outlook. And I guess once you maybe go beyond the 5 years, the question of AI becomes relevant to creators too. So I could see a future where you will have just your avatar and you can maybe,
Mm.
I don't know, insert a transcript and the video will be produced for you. How are you thinking
Mm.
about this as maybe a risk to your business? And maybe an opportunity
I
too.
Yeah, I think there is some element of risk. I think faceless channels are at much higher risk from AI generated content than people that like you and me that do show our face and have that kind of parasocial relationship with people. I think what makes YouTube going back to the point, going back to what makes YouTube channels so successful is that it's about building that community. You can definitely have a viral video where you don't show your face, you maybe do a voiceover and it's mostly B-roll. But for the ongoing success of your channel, generally the channels that do well are the channels where you do see the person and you relate to the person. So I think, AI is a crazy technology and I use it already to help me kind of plan out my videos and also to kind of read my script sometimes and be like, oh, you should probably tighten it up here or expand on this. I use it for content generation ideas, but I just don't see AI displacing the human aspect of content creation. Like I say, the faceless channels, that kind of stuff, definitely, I think AI is coming for that. But in terms of like you and me, because the people that tune into you, they want to see you. They don't want to see an AI.
Yeah.
Same, I think, with me. Like people that tune into me, they want to see me as opposed to just some AI talking to them. I think it will increase the amount of saturation of content, and maybe that will make it harder to get discovered. Um, but generally speaking, I think if your audience is there for you, then AI is no threat or a
Yeah.
small threat.
I guess
Don't
that
count it
point
out, I
can also
guess.
be tied back to the point we were talking about earlier, building a community. And I guess maybe you're even yourself leaving with some food for thought now that we talk about it. I guess when you're a little more community focused, you will probably be better protected from the AI disruption risk than someone who's
Mm,
like a purely faceless channel, of course, will be at the one end of the spectrum. A channel with lots of animations, maybe a bit more at risk too, right? So I guess
yeah.
you see, I'm in the process of thinking about it myself. I find that quite fascinating to think about.
Yeah, I think it'll certainly have a big impact. What that impact is, maybe I've got no idea.
Yeah,
But
no
I
one
think
does,
it will
right?
have,
I
yeah,
was
that and
recently
that's,
sharing an interview clip from a podcast with the Anthropic CEO, so one of the big AI
right.
companies, right, on the rise. And I found that clip quite refreshing because in it he himself shared that he's bullish on the future, but he also acknowledged that no one really knows.
Mm. It's so true. This another parallel, and this is the thing we can talk about like the Magnificent Seven. So much money is going into these seven businesses right now because everybody thinks that they're going to be the dominant AI, companies of the future or the companies that will capitalize off of this AI future. And it's kind of interesting because I can't remember who it was. Was it maybe Howard Marks saying that, you know, who knows if these seven businesses are even going to be who knows if chat GPTs of the world are going to, or the language models are even going to be the best use case of AI or the best revenue generators of AI in the future. Maybe it's this company we haven't even heard of. And it makes me think of that example that Warren Buffett put in his um, annual shareholder meeting a couple of years back. I think it was in 2021, where he pulled up a slide and he was talking about how in the early 1900s, everybody could see that the next big technology was the automobile. Like the car was going to take, everyone was going to have one of these, everyone was going to be buying cars. And at the time, he was saying that there were, hundreds and hundreds of automobile manufacturers back in that time. And he owned a couple of them. And then if you fast forward to, the mid 2000s, there was on out of all of the American automakers, there was three left.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I
And I
actually
think in
saw
the
saw a
'08
chart
crisis, then
showing
two
this.
of them went
Maybe,
bankrupt, didn't they?
yeah, maybe I can find the chart and put it on screen in the post production. Yeah, 100%. Capitalism is brutal, right? The same can
Yeah.
probably said about the internet era. Early on,
Yep.
like late 90s, you all saw all of these internet businesses who were supposedly disrupting economies
Yep.
all around the world, and you can probably count on two hands, maybe a little more, but there aren't that many
There's
businesses
not
left
many.
that exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Even the biggest tech companies from that era, you probably ask a young person today if they've heard of half of them, they probably say no. They probably say, yeah, I know Amazon, but apart from that, I know Microsoft, but apart from that, I don't know.
Yeah. However, like going back to the concept of scale advantages, I feel like the big tech companies, they have definitely a much better shot at being relevant in the AI space.
Yeah.
Because if you just think about, say, Google Gemini as one of the chatbots, right? You can use it for free. If, say, an up and coming company would want to compete with them, they wouldn't be able to offer the service for free, and customers would, of course, choose the free option, right? So there are
Yep.
definitely scale advantages in place here. In
They do
terms
have the money behind them, don't they?
Exactly. However, in terms of the return these businesses could hopefully earn on the billions and billions they are spending on AI, I think that's uncertain. I think it's not
Mm.
the businesses themselves probably don't know whether they will earn a satisfying return on those reinvestments just because the future is so hard to predict when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
And I guess like Meta, for example, it is the biggest position in my portfolio. I would argue that for Meta specifically, it is pretty apparent how they will be able to monetize AI. It will make the creation of content easier. It will make the creation of ads easier, and it will probably improve the efficiency of ads. So I think there's a pretty clear path to how all of that capex can be turned into profits
Mm.
in the future. But then in other areas, if we stay with Meta, for example, and the metaverse, I think it's much harder to predict.
Yeah. It's so hard, isn't it? Because we've got no idea what that's going to eventuate into. Yeah.
Yes.
I think you're right. Like you can definitely tell some of these companies, you can definitely understand. I think there's a lot of just trying to keep up with the Joneses happening amongst these seven companies. Like everyone's moving, so we better move so that we're not left behind. And they
And I
kind of
guess
just,
I guess I guess from a shareholder point of view, I think it's the right move because you don't
mm,
want to be left behind in this possibly insanely large
yeah,
opportunity set, right? For example, as an Apple shareholder, I would be quite disappointed that they are lagging behind here now. They are
yeah,
relying on OpenAI to do a partnership with. So
yeah.
they probably were moving too slow here because with their ecosystem, they probably had a good setup to play a relevant role and maybe even disrupt search with their what is it called? Well, their user base.
hmm Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with you that it's important that they kind of do just keep up with each other because what's the worst that can happen? They've got a lot of money, so they can invest in it, and then at the end of the day, they've had a try and they know now how to create AI systems and they've got the talent, so they can pivot. But yeah, I think that the end question, as we're talking about that we don't yet understand, is what business is going to benefit the most from having powerful AI behind it? Is it Google search? Is it Meta and their ads? Is it Amazon? Is it, and Nvidia, I guess is the hardware, but is it Tesla with self-driving cars? Like what products does AI serve itself best to enhance, I suppose, because right now all we're getting is just chatbots, right? Like that's what everyone's just creating their language models, which is great, but it's just like one use case, and who knows if it's the best use case? Probably not. So I guess we'll find out. But
Yeah.
that's the big unknown. But I think it's still the right strat is to just, well, we may as well invest because you do not want to get left behind. Like people say that I'm a bit anti-AI, but not at all. I think it's going to be I think it already is an absolutely revolutionary technology, and it will drive massive returns in some ways for some companies. But how that all plays out, I don't know.
Yeah. Just one more example that you just reminded me of when you bring up Tesla. I think the other day I saw, like, I think it was a tweet about Waymo. So again, self-driving cars, and how nowadays the algorithm is able to identify finger movement of pedestrians, for example, and can interpret it in a way that can predict where the guy is going. And just thinking about this, where just the fingertip. So that's crazy to think
That's
about.
wild.
And it shows how in all sorts of areas AI will have an impact. How it will be monetized, that's a whole different question, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Yep.
All right, if we shift the focus maybe a little away from AI and on investing in general, I wanted to pick your brain on some very basic investing concepts here. So first of all, I want to ask you, how do you invest personally?
All right, as our interview was quite long, it was actually more than 1 hour long, I decided to split this video in 2 parts. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to not miss out on part number 2, which will be released relatively soon, I think in a couple of days. And I'll see you then. Take care.